We are going to talk today about how to inspect an overfill valve installed in an above-ground storage tank. This tank is a 5,000-gallon double-wall UL-142 horizontal cylindrical storage tank. There are several components installed in this tank, such as this red jacket STP, a spill bucket, an ATG riser, a tank access manway, an emergency vent with a weighted lid, a clock level gauge. The remote fill piping is connected into this cabinet, which is extended over to the top of the tank. A remote fill and a stage 1 vapor recovery connection. For this inspection, you will need a variety of tools to safely disconnect the piping and remove the valve. These items may include a tape measure, a variety of pipe wrenches, absorbent pads, gloves, a folding tank stick, and pipe thread sealant. The first step to perform this inspection is to lay down absorbent pads to catch any residual fuel in the remote fill. Next, we want to look and identify the parts of the valve to be taken apart. The union can be disconnected by using pipe wrenches. After the union is loosened, carefully disconnect and remove that section of piping, which will allow you to unthread the overfill valve from the top of the tank. Keep in mind that you are working on top of a tank and may need to be tied off. The use of a larger wrench is always needed to remove the valve. Carefully unthread the valve, being careful to not damage any of the components of the valve while removing it from the tank. Keep in mind this can be very heavy depending upon the size of the valve. As you remove the valve, keep in mind that fuel will be leaking out. Next, we want to take a tank stick and measure the entire depth of the tank from the bottom all the way to the top of the nipple in this connection. This measurement is 101 inches on this tank. Next, we want to reach inside the tank and hook the inside of the ceiling of the tank to get the measurement to the top of that nipple, which in this case is 6 inches. After you remove the overfill valve, you want to lay it down. Inspect the float mechanism. Make sure that it slides freely. Inspect the linkage and make sure that there is nothing broken or damaged, prohibiting it from sliding up and down. You cannot actually inspect the valve because it is all internal. This valve happens to have a test mechanism, which here is being demonstrated with the connecting cable. Use a tape measure to measure down approximately how far in the pipe nipple will extend into the overfill valve adapter. In this case, it's about 1 inch. Identify the 1 inch of the adapter and measure down with the float up at the activation point to identify if the valve is installed correctly in the tank at the 95% by volume. Here we see that 1 inch is shown, and measuring down on the float after reviewing the manufacturer's guidelines shows that the activation point on this valve is 14.25 inches. Next, we want to go to the tank chart for this specific tank. Take the different pieces of information that we measured for the tank diameter, the riser, and calculate to determine if the valve is installed at 95%. A lot of times this is done back in the office and not in the field. After you have completed the inspection of the valve, and the valve appears to be in good condition, and there is nothing damaged or broken, apply the appropriate pipe thread sealant to both the male and female parts of the piping. After it is applied, remove any excess and carefully reinstall the overfill valve. The most important thing when reinstalling the overfill valve is to not damage the float and to pay attention to the direction of the float if it is a flapper style. In this case, the floats slide up and down, and so they won't come in contact with the side of the tank. A flapper style, however, may come in contact with the side of the tank or an adjacent riser, so pay close attention to that. Carefully thread the overfill valve back into the tank, again using the appropriate sized pipe wrench to ensure that it is tight. After the valve is installed, reconnect the remote fill piping by hand threading the unions. Note that there is no pipe thread sealant applied to a union fitting. Hand tighten both of these and then use wrenches to make sure that they are tight. This is a pressurized fuel delivery, so double check this.